The cornerstone of engaging others. No leader, no matter who you are, has gotten to where you've gotten to without the help of others. You just can't do it. And it doesn't matter if you're a one-person operation. You have external vendors, suppliers, media that you've engaged with in order to be able to get to the point in where you are today. Now that said, it's not something that you should stop continually improving on, perpetually honing those skills so that you can further your career and do new things when you so desire. This came about, the cornerstone of engaging others came about because I was one day in an office with a senior executive who said to me, "I've read all the books, I've seen all the tools out there. I'd like to know what's your perspective on how to engage others more effectively." And I think he expected an immediate reaction. I stopped. I said, "Let me get back to you tomorrow." I went back to my room and I spent that evening thinking about what are the different ways in which he could engage better or add to his arsenal. And we ended up with over 70 different potential tools, techniques, methodologies. So I came back the next day and shared it with him, and he said, some of these I'd never heard of or thought about in the way in which you presented them. So there is a more complete list online at paytothink.com. What I'm going to do is give you some of these tools. Now let's start off from 50,000 feet. From 50,000 feet, when I came back into that office the next day, I said to him, I have this whole list and I've broken them up into 4 categories. What do you think is most important, or what do you think is the most interesting? And I started off by telling him I came up with behavioral, written, oral, and interpersonal. And in his case, when thinking about it, he said, well, then it's got to be the interpersonal. And I said to him, from my examination, my thought, it's the behavioral side that really makes the largest impact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a series of tools that will enable you to be able to move forward so that you have better skill sets, and then you can determine for yourself what works and what doesn't. Let's start with the first one that I've got on my list, and it's in no particular order, it just happens to be in which they were written and paid to think. The first one is get accepted. Everybody needs to be accepted in one way, shape, or form to be able to produce or do what they need to do as a leader. It could be to sell somebody an idea or a concept. It needs to be that maybe they're walking into an office and they need to be escorted or brought someplace, so if they're not wearing the right clothing or the right attire, they won't get in. It could mean that they've not prepared themselves for the meeting or a situation. So getting accepted is extremely important, and one of the things you can do to easily become accepted is to do your homework. I mean, as much as it sounds simple, doing your homework is as simple as this. Doing some research on the person you're going to meet. In our office, what we do is we create a, let's say a little dossier, or we take some things off of the web, we look up bios to get an understanding of the person we're going to meet before we meet them. There's nothing like during a presentation or a handshake, a conversation to say, you spent some time in Moscow, right? You worked in Moscow for a while. Or to say, I saw that you were in the military. Where were you stationed? Those type of things make a difference when you're communicating with somebody. And more importantly, if you're in the creating plans, having this data changes your perspective greatly. Now, can you make mistakes? Absolutely. If you don't do this, or you pretend you are capable of it, without thinking it through, you can run into some dire situations. Let me give you one. I was working with the trucking quality assurance people. These are people who are responsible for taking care of safety and quality throughout an entire shipping fleet. And when I showed up, I had heard about a speaker who had spoken before me. What had happened is this woman had come in. She had brought with her little red noses that she's asked to put on their face. And she talked about humor and laughter. The funny thing was that no one was laughing. The reason was because laughter to a 6'4" or 194 centimeter tall guy is not exactly the same as the way she was presenting it. They actually felt as if she had not really understood who their market was. So one of the things you want to look for are ways to accelerate being accepted. And that's as simple as just knowing who you're going to meet, figuring out some plans as to be able to engage that person or that group or that environment in a way that is productive. So that's your first one. We're going to go on to a whole series of them next.